All right, in this episode, we help Victor Wu with his pitching mechanics, and we talk speed versus hypertrophy. All right, Brent Porcio and no one else. I'm all by myself in this episode. In here training with David Ardsma, Bob Wheatley. Maybe they'll pop their head in, help me out if I'm struggling. I'm struggling, right? All right, it's that TopVelocity hashtag pitch tips show. We're going to go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at TopVelocity hashtag pitch tips. Ask your question. We answer it on the show. If you haven't already, go out there. Twitter's kind of my favorite thing right now. I get most of my questions off Twitter, but we'll come find you if you have it on the other social networks. But we've been getting a lot of good questions. And what's the question for today? Victor Wu asks, and if you have time, do you think you could look at my mound progress? I recently hit 85, consistent 81, 82. All right, congratulations, Victor. I know you came down to a camp. Awesome, pretty cool with Victor. Pretty dedicated guy in Australia, comes down for a camp here, trains for a couple of weeks afterwards. I think you were 70s at camp, and now you're all the way up, touching mid-80s. Congratulations, that's awesome. And what I'm seeing, Victor, I think you've done really well with getting better at your hip mobility, but I still think there might be a little issue there. It looks like, obviously, when you hit front foot strike, your chin is way in front of your hips. So your trunk is already transferring linear. Great separation, so there's no rotation of the trunk, but you hit front foot, and there's definitely already a linear shift of momentum in the trunk. Too much. Your chin is way in front of your belt buckle. So even though you're separating with that, you don't have a lot of time to load your arm before pitch release. I mean, the point is you don't have like all this distance that you can cover and build power in your trunk to accelerate your arm. So if you can land with your chin more behind your belt buckle, then you're going to have more time to go more distance with the trunk and generate more trunk power, which is going to accelerate more arm speed. There's just, not that all guys throw hard with a lot of trunk distances, but it does give you the potential to throw a lot harder. So that's the one thing I want to see for you as well. Because your trunk is getting a little ahead of your hips at front foot, when we keep the hips leading longer, the front leg typically gets out farther. We get lower to our center of gravity gets lower, and then we get a better front leg. And that front leg then has time to actually help drive more trunk power. And you can see you hit front foot, and because you're having to release so quick, you're flying over your front foot. So we got to get better at chin behind belt buckle so you can get in a better position to not only move the trunk, but get the front leg supporting that, and you stop your momentum in the pitch release. You can see after you release the ball, you still have a lot of momentum in your body going forward that you haven't been able to stop. So we want to get to the point where when you hit pitch release, you're not wanting to run off the mound, and that's going to be fixing that chin behind belt buckle and transitioning that trunk later and getting more front leg into that trunk movement. All right, so probably as I was doing this analysis, I'll have the video playing, so hopefully you're watching that. Hopefully it makes sense. Next question. Cass Krylo asks, in response to episode 95, can you elaborate on comment that you focus on speed, not hypertrophy? Pros versus cons of each. Cash, I don't remember, I didn't look at episode 95, so I don't remember how I said that. Everything comes in a different context, but, we'll just talk about speed, hypertrophy. Both are important. And if I'm going to lay out a program, like in a long periodization model, I'm going to build it out over time. And if you look at level 1, level 2, level 3, it pretty much takes that approach. But up front, really when you design a program from a beginner phase, it should be called an adaptive phase, to where you're basically prepping the body to handle the training, getting all the joints prepared to handle the loads, the mobility, everything to really kind of put in place before you start to really kind of push into performance enhancement. And then from there, we would go into a hypertrophy phase. So that's when our hypertrophy phase comes in, following an adaptive phase to build strength, build size. Really, hypertrophy is size, growing the muscle. So we build that size and strength. So as we build on more strength and then eventually power, then it gives us a good base. So hypertrophy is important up front and really is always important in a program to keep you strong enough, because strength is really the foundation of everything. It can be even in, really support speed. But it's something definitely would come in the initial programming of the pitcher or the athlete. And then you'll go into maximizing strength, and then go into power, which is bringing in the speed, and then you can even kind of finish up before you go into competition in a more speed focused approach at that point, because you got everything really built in. You're just trying to get it more to the field and the field movements, which are typically not loaded movements, so they're more speed movements. So it's really not pros versus con. Like, you wouldn't want to be like, I guess if you're in a hypertrophy phase, you are not in a speed phase, so you are not working on speed. And when you're not working on something, it's not getting better, and more than likely it could get worse. And then when you're in a speed phase, same thing. You're not hypertrophying, you're not growing, so that could get worse too. So, of course, if you're really trying to evaluate them together, speed is something that's going to convert more in baseball. But what we learn and how guys move, high velocity pitchers move, it's really more of a component of power. What power is speed with force, and that's important because we're trying to get that into the ball. So, you look at guys. If you look at versions of speed to power guys would be the big guys, on the mound that are moving with a lot of force. I guess I would think of. I always go to extremes. I like this guy, a AAA pitcher, Jimmy Nelson with the Brewers. He's like 265. And he's moving explosively, really explosive front leg. Yeah, or Broxton, the big guys. That's when I think of power, because they move impressively well for their size, and therefore it's quick too. It's big mass moving quickly. That's when I think of power. Now speed, I think of the little guys. I think of Sonny Grays. I think of Tim Lincecum when he threw hard. Stroman, little guys that you don't see a lot of force moving. They're just so quick to do it. But it doesn't have to be in those extremes. There should be a little bit of, everybody can benefit from both of those approaches, and that's really what we try to do. So hypertrophy and speed is really power, but to tell you the truth, both of them are really critical in their own separate components. Speed actually being more easily convert to the mound than hypertrophy. But if you ultimately want to get to power, you have to have the hypertrophy. So see how it works? So it's not something you want to be like, I don't want hypertrophy, I want speed, or I don't want speed, I want hypertrophy. They really are there to develop the high velocity pitcher together, and you need to understand the value of both and how to use them. So, all right, that was a good question. If you have another question, go to Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, @TopVelocity, #PitchTips, ask your question. We answer on the show. Come down to 3X Velocity Camps. We got 3X Velocity Camps coming up this weekend, next weekend. Also one in January before the season starts. Great time to come in and get your base set, get some training in, gain some speed if you can before the season. And also, come check us out at the ABCA convention in Nashville. It's going to be pretty fun. A lot going on there, but we're going to be trying to show off a lot of what we do and all the data we've collected at Top Velocity and the success we've had. So if you're there, if you're in the area, you can come by and see us. We'll be hanging out with the King of the Hill.